Yo, yo, yo.
What's up?
¿Qué pasa con la raza?
I am going to an event tonight, so I had to get dressed up. I got a suit jacket on, so wearing my thing. I gotta be fancy. I'm fancy. I'm important tonight.
I'm gonna make no comments because the trolls will be out. I don't need HR calling me, so I'm just gonna pretend as if I'm just looking in your eyes anyway.
We have an HR.
Everybody has an HR.
Oh,
somebody on Twitter will have an HR, and trust me, we'll hear all about it.
So. Trolls are real, man. I got this person commented on something the other day on my other stuff, and I was like, wow, there's so much anger in this world. My God.
Yeah, a lot of it emanates from the show, but
it was totally irrelevant to the show. This was on Mother Flocker, and I was like, I commented on someone else's thing, and it was like,
well, maybe some of my friends who hate you are watching you, and some of your friends who hate me are watching me. So it's like we're getting getting from both sides now.
Nobody hates me.
Okay, you're right.
They dislike my point of view, but you can't hate me. You don't know me.
Right. Okay, what are we doing today? What's our 30 minutes about?
Stabbing you in the face with things.
I'll take it. I accept it.
We are talking about student loan forgiveness.
Very topical. Very topical. Very top of the page, as they say.
Listen, pay your debts, mofos. Pay your debts.
Today is not going to be a brawl, though. I think it's going to be fairly calm because I think we might agree on the facts. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Never can tell with us.
I think we'll agree on the facts. I think we'll have to. It'll be interesting to see what our solutions are. If we don't like the current option, what is our solution to the problem?
So let's talk about some facts, right? So Biden, Harris, your two favorite people.
Want to go ahead and put us more into debt and create a higher inflation and just bail people out who can't pay their own bills. But okay, please continue.
Yeah, kind of like everything Trump did for 4 years. But still, so what they did was they created a student loan forgiveness plan that federal debt up for families, for individuals up to $125,000 income and families up to $250,000 income get $10,000 of federal student loan forgiveness. If they had a Pell Grant, they have $20,000 of student loan forgiveness.
Right.
And then they've also proposed a rule, which I'm not sure if it's going to be adopted yet or if it has to be about, people who work for nonprofits, so the government can have all of their debt forgiven under certain circumstances. So it could go a little bit further for certain people. But that's basically the gist of it. Okay. $10,000, $20,000 for families and people earning less than a certain amount. Okay. So do we agree? Do we agree that those are the facts?
Those are the facts. From what I could gather.
That should be it. Done. Podcast over. Let's go home.
From a plethora of sources, that is what I've gathered thus far. So my collection of data.
Okay. So even though it was said on, let's say, CNN or MSNBC, it's still actually correct. They reported something correctly for the first time in their history.
I mean, I did a lot of research on other websites as well, just to confirm and cross-check even the actual FAFSA website and all that.
Did you really, though? Did you really not believe the mainstream sites that reported? Did you still have to check it on your own personal coterie of sites?
I check everything. I have 12 tabs open, and then if there's a link in there, I'll go to the next site and I'll go in a
No, but this is actually. But
no,
this is
I don't believe anything the mainstream media says until I cross-reference it.
Okay. And do you think that was always the case? Was that always the case? 10 years ago, do you think people believed in the New York Times and now they don't?
Probably. I haven't watched the news since Ella was baby. For some reason, every time I would watch the news, I would get really angry and triggered. It just really messed with my soul. And I was like, why am I so angry at the TV and the people? And I sort of banned myself from watching the news 20 years ago. So the brief interactions I have had, I would say up until about 10 years ago, were probably 80% accuracy. Now I just feel like it's completely flawed and it's just bought.
And now this is a little bit off the topic, but it's
so that's fine.
And why do you believe now, 10 years later, it's flawed as opposed to 10 years ago it was generally 80% okay?
Just because of all the stuff we talk about, the global narrative and just this shift towards trying to really change like through propaganda and news and mainstream media and pushing the same narrative and like that kind of like programming of like, here's what's happening, here's what's happening, here's what's happening. But you're like,
so you
what
think
about that? I don't think it's a fair distribution of both sides of the story. So
you think the New York Times, for example, has some propaganda objective?
Yeah, the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, all of them. Yeah, all that.
The Jews.
Some of the Jews.
I mean, Rothschild is usually like a synonym for Jews out in this, like globalists, the Jews.
I understand, but there's more than just Jews involved, homie.
Well, not if you read the editorial mass lines. But anyway, okay, moving on.
And New York is very blue, so yeah, 100%. Yes. Bought.
Got it. But the red states are... But the red states, like the Jew money, that's redundant to say Jew money. But and the red states like Oklahoma, Mississippi, wherever, those are not bought. Those are true, or you don't believe them either, or you believe them?
I think it depends on who is at the helm of the station and if they align with that globalist narrative.
The Jew narrative.
Yeah. Well, it's not just Jew. You're not the only people in the world, freak. Back it up with your ego.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. I'm just curious. Okay,
we know where I stand on media.
No, but I understand where you stand on it, and that's fine. Right. But the interesting thing to me is like this, and why I don't think there's going to be some huge cataclysmic brawl in this podcast is because these are facts like 2 + 2 = 4 to me. Like this is what this is what the plan is.
Right. It's math. And it's on the like student aid website, like the government website where you go and like apply for the forgiveness.
So it's kind of
like it's there. Like you can't make that up. Like you have to apply and you have to meet the criteria. So it's kind of like basic math.
So, but it's kind of interesting that even in that case, when it is black and white, this is what I see in front of me, 2 + 2 = 4. You still don't believe it. Isn't that like, doesn't that have some, don't you like wonder about that? Like the fact that you still don't believe 2 + 2 = 4?
The first website I went to was the government like website for student loans, right? So I went there first and I was like, okay. But then I went and I cross-referenced all the news articles.
But that's my point. That's my point. Like if New York Times says 2 + 2 = 4, would you cross-check it with Breitbart? Or would you believe 2 + 2 = 4?
No.
What?
Listen, you can't mess up math. This is math. Math is very black and white. But all this other stuff is not so black and white. So you cannot compare 2 + 2 = 4 to January 6th and like
and I agree. And I've said during these conversations that I agree that when it comes to opinion, I agree with you. But when it comes to facts, I don't. And so like the student loan forgiveness plan is $10,000 and $20,000 with a Pell Grant. But yet, even though that's just a fact that we shouldn't even have any debate or question, you still feel the need, and maybe, people of your ilk on the right feel the need to like go check it anyway, even though it's facts. Maybe.
Look, before I get on this show with you, I like to read all the things. I just want to understand all the different opinions, all the different articles, whatever that is, facts, and collect it all. So if you come at me with some random crap out of left field and I'm like, what the hell is that? I'm like, I did read that. And by the way, that's a lie. Like, I want to be prepared. So I'm going to research. I research. Okay.
No, that's great. You should. And I do the same thing. I look on different sites for different opinions. I don't have to look on different sites to decide whether 2 + 2 = 4. Which I'm using that as an example.
But who's to say the facts are the facts anymore? No one knows what the facts are. No one knows what the science is. No one knows this, that.
But there are facts that people know, like what are the terms of this plan? That should be something where you should like. And by the way, if I went on Breitbart.com and it said the plan was $10,000, $20,000 for Pell Grants, I'd believe Breitbart.com too. I mean, I'd believe it. I wouldn't have to go cross-check it. I'd be like, okay, I got it.
Well, I'm sorry to tell you, I don't believe anything. So I just
okay.
There it is.
Maybe that's kind of the crux of
I trust issues. Maybe I should call my therapist about that. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. Go.
Okay, so let's get into some of the arguments. Let's just start with general thumbs up or thumbs down on student loan forgiveness. What do you generally think about it? Is it good or bad? What do you think? Before we get into like the details, think it's a good idea?
No, I think it's going to put us into some serious debt, and people like me and my children are going to end up paying back other people's default. And that's a problem for me because, I took out student loans, but I paid them off. I have 4 kids. I have kids in college. Like I understand student loans suck, but you don't walk away from your obligations. That's how I was raised. So that's a hard pass for me on the forgiveness thing.
So do you remember the PPP loans?
Correct.
When did those happen?
During the Rona.
Yeah, during which administration? Was it Biden?
It's actually both. They're still giving them out.
Okay, but I don't think they still are, but it started with.
Oh no, people are serving ads on Facebook and Google and all that. They're out there. You search them.
You believe those ads? Are those the ads you believe? Okay, let's not get into it. So, but it started.
I'm in digital marketing, so I'm like, this is unique. I thought we were done with this. Let's see where this leads, and then it's like this whole whirlwind. So
exactly.
Yeah, no, right.
I don't believe it's true. It doesn't matter. Point being is the PPP thing started during the previous administration, right? Not Biden.
Well, why did the PPP start?
Well, no, we could get into that, but
the economy shut down and people had no way to conduct commerce and make money.
Right, but those loans that were given out were forgiven, right?
Correct. If they were used for specific criteria in the business, you couldn't just like spend them on like a Mercedes and like a brand new house. Like you had to like give your salary, your employees raises. It had to be for infrastructure, real estate, like improvements. It had categories.
Do you believe that everybody who took PPP loans actually did it for those criteria and those specific reasons?
Probably not, because if you run your own books, you can cook them all day long.
Right. And so, but those loans were forgiven. Are you okay with those loans being forgiven?
No, because I didn't get any of them.
Okay. Okay. No, that's good. So you're just not in the loans being forgiven. So you are against the PPP program as well.
No. I think it could have been a little more, I guess, not stringent, but basically, like, I mean, if you were really taking them because your business was truly suffering and there were criteria, there maybe could have been a better checks and balances process there.
But you're
because again, like, I'm not against it. I think what I'm against is who's paying it back, right? So if you give money away and then you say, oh, it's forgiven, well, we pulled that from somewhere or we printed
the
money,
taxpayers
did it. So like it's going to get passed on to someone like me who worked during COVID and never got the benefit of any stimulus money. I didn't get anything during all that and I had to work my butt off. So I'm like, it kind of sucks.
The taxpayers always pay it back.
My point, always. Like I shouldn't have to pay back blanket debt.
So you're against any loan forgiveness or any type of forgiveness of any debt by the federal government because taxpayers will just have to pay it.
If the government created a reason why they had to help bail out the American people, like said COVID, all of that stuff, then yeah. I mean, I don't want to pay back someone else's $1 million PPP loan over the next 30 years of my life through incremental tax increases. That's crap. Right. And why should I have to do that? Like, do you pay my credit card bill? Do you pay my?
I know you've asked me to. You've asked me to, but I refuse.
Well, just because I want you to be my sugar daddy, that's a whole other conversation for another time.
That's right. That'll be our next podcast.
Saccharine Zaddy. Wait, we call you Zaddy, right? Zaddy, is that your name?
That might be a 60-minute podcast. Then. That might go a little bit longer. Okay, so you're against any type of.
Get out of here! I'm gonna fuck you right now. But let's talk about it. Would you want to send me some cash?
Absolutely not. Okay, so you're totally against any loan forgiveness by the federal government.
I mean, if you take out a loan, you got to pay back. Yeah.
No, that's cool. So is that also true for?
I'm into hard times, right? Like, so then we segue into like, well, what if you come into hard times and you whatever? I mean, there's forbearances, there's adjusted payment plans. So like, if someone generally is like, hey, I want to pay my loan back, but I've hit a wall with my career or I'm not making as much money and like there's options, sure. Then like we offer those solutions, but just completely having people not have to pay back money that they've borrowed for their education, their higher education, because those are choices. It's a choice to go to college. It's a choice to get your master's. It's a choice to get your PhD, right? And if you need money to fund you through that time in your life, the goal is I'm going to make enough money to pay all that back. Where it gets a little wonky is, maybe we talk about predatory lending and we talk about interest rates, right? These people are borrowing $50,000, but they're paying $1,000.
So basically, so you believe that there are times, like for instance, and again, this isn't a Trump versus Biden discussion, really.
No, this is a math.
Right, exactly. So that's why I don't think
it's an economic discussion, really.
That's why it's not going to be too violent. But so the farmers, I mean, Trump bailed out the farmers in a big way during his administration. like he let them off the hook of a lot of debt. You would have been in favor
You
of
like
that or
to
not?
eat?
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, they got into business. I mean, somebody else, a big farming conglomerate might have taken them over. But, some of the small farmers got into problems because of drought, climate change, quote unquote climate change, and a lot of things, and the market and whatever. And so he bailed them out because he believed, and by the way, I'm not denigrating him for doing that or criticizing.
No.
I'm just saying he did. And he decided, like you're saying, you're creating criteria of why you think it's okay. And that's what he did. So you're
I think
okay with that or not?
Well, if I were to bucket this, I would say food is a necessity. And if the farmers are providing food for the masses on a bigger scale.
But if a third of the
I mean, that's
if a third of the farmers go under, then the conglomerate's going to come in and pick up and there's going to be food. It's not like
I don't want that to happen because the chemicals that they put in are way worse than these small farmers. And I don't want my kids eating that junk.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if those are the farmers got bailed out. Regardless, point being is that there's criteria during which you say we should do loan forgiveness because X, Y, and Z occurred, and so you're okay with that.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Right. I think like it's on a case by case basis. Maybe it's like in this particular instance, industry basis, right? If during economic hardships, certain industries are hit harder, then maybe there should be an adjustment. Like you still have to pay things back. You still have to be good on your debt, but let's talk about terms. Let's talk about what that looks like.
Yeah.
I mean, I just don't think that we just keep printing money. Like I make a joke. I'm like, damn, I want Biden's printer in my house. I'm just going to keep printing money. That inkjet printer's got to run out at some time. Like we just keep printing money. And what people don't realize is it's putting us more and more in debt, which means inflation goes up. And guess what? Me, you, and everybody else, like our grandchildren and great grandchildren are going to be left to pay that bill. Can't pay that money back over time. That's ridiculous.
Right.
So I'm very fiscally conservative like that. Not like conservative. I mean, like I'm very conscious about my money. You're a Jew. You're very conscious about your money. Yes.
It's in my DNA. What else
like,
can I do?
You're tighter than bark on a tree. So like, when you look at a massive hill of debt, your sphincter gets a little tight and you're like, and so the goal is to like have a balance of.
By the way, I tend to agree with you. I tend to agree that loan forgiveness is not something that's, a panacea, a cure-all, but there are criteria.
I know what that word means. Thanks so much.
Well, some of the other geniuses who listen to this site may not.
It's an SAT word. You learn that in like 9th grade.
Okay. All right. So in Florida, I think it's senior year, but still, it's just basically, but there should be criteria, and I agree. So then the question is, were the criteria in this particular case good enough? So one of the arguments for this forgiveness program. So we're in agreement. We are in agreement.
Oh my God.
That there should be
in history.
It's good. It's good. Now let's talk about some of the reasons it was done. So one of the arguments for it was that the economy is actually kind of being held back. There's 45 million student borrowers. They have $1.7 trillion in debt, which has doubled in the last 10 years. So it's actually there's an argument that's acting as a drag on the economy because a lot of people aren't buying houses and cars and equipment and whatever because they have this debt. And so by getting rid of the debt, which by the way, and this isn't a fact per se, but it was a report that came out that said a $10,000 student loan forgiveness package would cost $300 billion over 10 years. Wharton, Trump School came up with that number. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. Now, this summer, the House approved $893 billion of spending for the military. So if you were to, and that number's that's the reality of the number, the budget. So if you believe that $300 billion number, this program, and he also gets to 20,000, so the numbers aren't exactly right, but it could be $300, $400, $500 billion, about half a year's military budget cost. And then you would have to add back however the economy would be bolstered by all these people no longer having debt, maybe going out and buying those items that they wouldn't have bought before.
Okay, so say you have like $50,000 of debt, you get $10,000 reprieve. That's $40,000. My question is, it's only 10 grand. That's not a ton. Now you tap interest on however the terms of that loan are. That could accumulate over time and compound. But is that really enough to like have somebody go buy a house? They still have $40,000 on their DTI. Like, So if they're not making any more money and they still owe $40,000, $10,000 isn't really that much.
It's a good point. It's a good point. And by the way, remember when that first PPP payment came out, like $2,000, $2,000. Right. I mean, it created this huge boost in the economy. Now that was for everybody in the United States, taxpayers. So it was more people, but still $2,000. I mean, for a lot of people in the world, $10,000 is a lot of money. And you're right. They're probably not buying a house unless it's in Detroit where you could buy a neighborhood for $10,000. But
in Florida, that's for damn sure.
But you know, they might buy a car. You know, they might fix their car.
If they're available.
Then what?
If they're available, cars are really hard to come by right now. New cars.
No, that's very true.
Get into the chip. Let's get into the semiconductor conversation later.
No, that's very true. No, it's not a tremendous amount of money, but it is some. So do you believe, though, that it could provide a boost to the economy, which would offset that cost?
I think if they're actually going to do something, I wouldn't necessarily forgive $10,000. I would make an adjustment to their interest rates and drop their interest rates down, because then their payment drops down from like $900 a month to $310 a month. And now they can go out and buy a car, right? They can actually go buy a car.
Isn't it the same thing?
Not really. No, it's not.
No, it really is, because like if you owe me $10,000, I'm charging you 8%. I expected $800. Okay, that's what the government's going to get. If I only charge you 4%, I'm only getting $400, and I just lost $400 that you're not paying me back. It's just a question of amounts. How much less are you getting paid back? I mean, if you're saying that $10,000 is too much and you want it to be adjusted, I understand that. But saying a forgiveness or a lower interest, it's the same concept that they're lowering the amount they have to pay back.
I mean, technically, it might not be though, right? So, like, if you're waiving $10,000, you go from 50 to 40. But you're still paying 8% interest over 10 years. Do the math on that. Like if you say, hey, I'm going to adjust your interest rate down to 3% from 8%, that's a huge savings over a 10-year period.
No, that's what I'm saying to you. I'm saying to you that the question of forgiving an amount of money off the principal or lowering the interest rates is effectively the same thing. You're lowering the amount of money they're paying back.
Right. But if you want to stimulate the economy, if someone has less monthly outlay and they've got a little bit left over and they're like, oh man, maybe I'm already paying $500 for that car. I'd like a new car. It's going to cost me $700. Well, I just saved $400. If I add on $200 for this extra car payment, I'm still saving $200 a month total outlay, and I have a new car. That stimulates the economy, and that lender is now earning interest on that car as well. So people are still making money off the person.
No, it certainly still
if it comes down to like stimulating the economy, I just think there just should be a different approach if you're really trying to help people.
But if you're trying to stimulate the economy, giving somebody $10,000 off today, and so if you have, let's say you have less than $10,000 in debt, right? Knowing that I have no debt tomorrow, that's going to stimulate the economy a lot more than saying, hey, I'm going to drop your interest rate so your payments over the next 10 years are going to drop. I mean, you're stimulating the economy much more by doing a principal reduction today.
Maybe they have different options. Maybe you have like package A, B, and C, and you get to pick which.
Well, no, but that's why I'm asking you, like, what's your point? By doing it differently just because it feels better to you, or you think there's going to be less money, or what? Like, what's the rationale?
I think it just depends on the person, right? I don't know. I'm looking at it from the consumer perspective. If this is supposed to help stimulate the economy and help the American people, then make it so it actually helps people.
Well, they give them more than 10,000?
No. 10,000, or like maybe instead, like, so if you have, what if you only have $4,000 of student loan?
Okay, so $4,000 is gone now. It's up to 10,000.
I mean, I want the extra 6. You gave me up to 10. Give me all of it. I'm just saying.
Oh, so you want to give more? You want to give $10,000 to everybody?
No, I'm looking at it from the consumer side. I'm looking at.
But I don't understand how you're looking at it, because if you're arguing against the loan forgiveness package because you're saying there could be other ways of doing it, okay, well, why are we doing it that way if the net effect is the same in terms of the government getting less money, and it's not going to stimulate the economy as well as it would by doing loan forgiveness?
I feel like if you just give them $10,000, we're just giving money away. If you readjust the terms of their loans,
giving money away.
Are you
No,
really?
you're giving. Yeah, I mean, look, if I owe you 8%, I got to pay you $800 next month, and you're up to 4.
These lenders that give student loan money are raping and pillaging these college students. Literally, it's predatory lending, and you know it. And that's the problem. Like, they're being greedy.
Student loan payments.
I have to finance my education. That's $500 a credit hour that maybe, if I'm lucky, I'm going to graduate and get a job making $75,000 a year.
Yeah, but you're arguing against taxes. You're arguing against your own position, though. If you're saying they're predatory lenders, then you should be totally in favor of forgiveness because you're saying they're getting ripped off anyway. So if you're saying they're getting ripped off, then you're
but predatory lenders aren't the federal government. They're not all coming from the federal government. Some of these are coming from private institutions.
But this is federal. These are federal debts that we're talking about. So if you want to do something with the private debt, that's a whole other conversation. I'm talking about this thing with the federal government.
Well, is it? I guess it's, I don't know.
But no, but that's the whole point. It's the federal government is giving away, essentially, you're right. They're giving money away.
So what does that do long-term for taxes and inflation? You tell me.
No, exactly. And that's what I said earlier. So Wharton created the study that said if they give away $10,000 to the student for student loan debt, then it would have a net effect of $300 billion in cost over 10 years. Now, this one also means over 10 years.
How much is it going to cost me?
No, it's going to cost $30 billion a year. However, there's going to be a similar a boost to the economy by all these people now probably spend more. And that's the whole point of the loan forgiveness program is that, what do you mean? There's not going to be any boost? We already talked about there was a boost when there was PPP. You think there's not going to be any boost? Zero?
$2,000 does not boost the economy.
But the economy was boosted when that money went out.
When was the first check sent out? I don't know. I didn't get any, so I don't know.
Check your 15 websites. Trust me, it was boosted. Now, I'm not arguing.
Oh, no. I'm just saying I don't know. Remember the first date that money was dispersed.
No, I don't remember either. But I'm not arguing. I'm not arguing that the benefits would outweigh the cost. It might still be the cost or more. But there is something to be said for giving these people a better outlook on life. Like being in debt is terrible. A lot of these students, former students, are in a bad position. Look, and again, if we talk culturally,
so instead of like dropping the price of gas and drilling it on our own land, and like looking at the cost for food and all that kind of stuff, we're just gonna give $10,000 in student loan forgiveness.
Well, it's not an either or proposition. It's not really an either or proposition. And again, you're now getting into like what the Democrats' agenda is versus the Republicans.
No. What I'm saying is like, if this is the resolution to stimulate the economy, there's
it's a resolution. It's not the resolution. And again, it's not requiring the federal government to write a check. They're just not bringing in as many proceeds as they would have otherwise. So it's a resolution. It's a piece. It's not going to solve everything. It's not going to solve. And by the way,
I feel like it's a carrot, and we're dangling the carrot before midterm elections. And I feel like it's going to create more debt that, again, you and I will pay for. And that is a problem for me because I don't feel like that's my problem. I have my own debt that I have created, that I pay for, that I've committed to. And
so I don't have kids in school as of June 1st, 2023. I will not have kids in school anymore. Actually, I don't now. My kid goes to private school.
They're in college.
Well, one kid, but I have one kid, one more year of private school. So I don't pay for public. I get no benefit for public schools.
Me neither. I pay for private schools too. So
your tax dollars and my tax dollars go to pay for public schools.
Correct.
Even though we get no benefit. We get no benefit for that.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, that shit.
No, what do you think about that? Is that okay?
Well, I mean, the hard part is it's a choice we make, right?
Right.
So
what do you think? Well, are you okay with your tax dollars going to public schools, even though you get no benefit from them?
I guess that's one of those things where I opt out of the public schools, and there are great public schools in my area.
But your tax dollars pay for them anyway.
Right. It's one of those things where, but it also pays for infrastructure and parks.
Well, no, I got that, but we can go through all of those things, and like maybe I don't go to parks. There's ADA requirements, right? They spend a lot of money to make sure that disabled people have equal access.
I don't know, how do you feel about it? I mean, you probably pay a lot more taxes than I do. So how do you feel, especially in California? Like,
I think that's the cost of being in a civilized society. I think that we always pay for things that we don't necessarily get because it's for the greater good. And so, unfortunately, I
mean, that doesn't bother me. I don't. It's not a.
But if that doesn't bother you, then why doesn't? but then why doesn't the student loan thing bother you? Because it's $300 billion over 10 years. Let's assume that number's correct. 300. That's a third of the military budget. It's not going to have that much of an effect.
I am making a personal choice to send my children to private school, for which I then pay for. Right? That is a debt I pay. I mean, I have to pay every month.
But you're also required.
But no. But somebody who goes to college because they want to go to college and take out a student loan, I should not have to pay back their debt for their education.
Got it. 30 minutes. We're done.
You're a punk.
Time's up. Interesting. No, but here's the deal. I think the summary of all this is I don't think we're that far apart of this stuff. I mean, I agree with your points. I know that sometimes it's hard to pay.
I'm like sort of a Jew sometimes.
Okay, I'm never a Christian. But I understand it. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's a terrible thing to say, you know what, they shouldn't get it, they don't deserve it, I don't want to pay for it. I kind of understand all those things.
Well, I understand it too, being the last couple of years with all the economic craziness, but at the same time.
But I think ultimately the cost of college, bless you, has gone up so much. I think people are getting screwed. I think people of color get really screwed on debt. I agree with you. There's predatory lending. And I think they should get a break, and I'm okay to pay for my piece of it.
So this is like an interesting point real quick. I'll make it. But a good friend of mine used to work for a company called Gratify. And Gratify is a kind of like a student loan repayment program where they pair up with companies. And instead of doing a 401k match, they do a student loan payback match. Right?
Super cool. Yeah, awesome.
Right? So like if you're coming out of grad school and you've got $900 worth of student loan every month, like, depending on, I'm sure there's brackets for which the company's like, all right, we're not paying $500, but whatever that is, but it's kind of cool. And so there are options out there.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Something people know. So
time's up.
You're so like aggressive and like, you should really have that looked at. Angry.
It's our viewers. I'm respectful. I'm respectful of our viewers' time.
I'm respectful.
I'm all about respect.
RESPCT, find out what it means to me.
See you next time, sister. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Bye.
Alaikum salam.